Oops, I accidentally time-traveled and fucked my dad's best friend. I wish I had never met you. That's what Mum screamed, top of her lungs, voice cracking in the way that always meant she was crying, but didn't want to be. The words cut through the walls, sharp and mean, like knives wrapped in gasoline. And Dad? He didn't shout back. Not right away. He laughed. That awful, hollow kind of laugh. The one that says we're already broken, so what's the point in pretending? Then came the crash. Something heavy, a dish, a chair? I didn't want to find out. I was already moving. Down the stairs, past the pictures of a fake happy family, past the living room where they used to slow dance when they thought I wasn't looking. Into the basement, my hideout, my panic room, my stupid, silent escape hatch. I shut the door behind me and stood there for a second, breathing hard. My chest hurt, not in the I'm scared way, in the I don't want to feel anything anymore way. And I swear to God, I almost hoped that crash was the end of it, that maybe one of them just didn't get back up this time. I know how that sounds. I'm not proud of it. I wanted peace. Any kind. The basement was cold, damp, still smelled like the weird old candle my grandpa used to light when he lived here. The overhead bulb flickered once, then gave up completely. Fine. Dark was better anyway. I dropped to the floor between the heater and a pile of boxes, sat there, legs pulled to my chest, forehead pressed to my knees, trying to disappear, trying to unhear every word that had just been screamed. That's when I saw it. One of the boxes was open, just barely, like someone had peeked inside and forgotten to close it. It was shoved behind a broken shelf, tucked between an old guitar case and a dusty plastic bin full of VHS tapes. Sharpie scrawled across the cardboard, Grandpa's things. I blinked, crawled over, opened it fully. Inside were little pieces of a man I barely got to know. Medals, dog tags, a photo of him young and smiling, arm wrapped around a man with the same sharp jaw as my dad. Letters tied with a fraying red ribbon. A pack of chewing gum that somehow still smelled like wintergreen. And at the very bottom, a watch. Sort of. It wasn't normal. It wasn't even trying to be. This thing looked like it came out of a movie. Bulky, like a tiny machine strapped to leather. There were buttons, 3 on the side, 2 underneath. One had a crack right through the middle, like lightning had kissed it. I picked it up. It hummed. Actually hummed. Not loud. Just this soft, electric purr that I felt more than heard. I don't know why I pressed the button. Maybe I wanted to break something. Maybe I wanted to feel in control of something for once. Or maybe I was hoping it would blow up in my face. Either way, I hit the cracked button, and the world ripped. There was this flash, like being thrown into lightning. My ears popped, my skin buzzed, my vision blurred so fast it hurt. I tried to scream, but I couldn't tell if my mouth was open. Everything stretched and spun and collapsed in on itself, like a black hole was eating me from the inside out. And then, nothing. Just air. Warm, sweet. Birds, wind, sunlight through my eyelids. I gasped and opened my eyes. Green grass. Blue sky. The sound of someone laughing in the distance. I sat up so fast I almost puked. What the hell? Where the hell? I was outside, and I wasn't alone. A few minutes later, it took me the whole 3 minutes to realize that I was lying face down in the grass, which, honestly, wasn't that weird for a teenager trying to survive his parents' divorce. But the birds were singing, like, actually singing, loud and happy and annoyingly alive. The kind of birds you only hear in movies, that don't end with a custody battle. I groaned, pushed myself up on my elbows. There was dirt on my cheek. My head throbbed like I'd been hit with a microwave, and for a second, just one, I thought maybe the watch had electrocuted me to death, and this was heaven. Or hell. But then I looked around, and froze. The street was quiet. Too quiet. No traffic, no blaring horns, no neighbor yelling at Alexa to play Nickelback. Just sunshine, trees, a soft breeze that smelled like cut grass and distant fries. And the people, oh God, they weren't on their phones, not a single one, not even a glimpse of AirPods or Bluetooth anything. A guy walked by carrying a CD player, headphones like mini satellite dishes, grinning like the world hadn't invented anxiety yet. I stood up slowly, heart pounding. My legs felt weird. Too light, too here, like gravity hadn't decided what to do with me yet. And then I saw it, the sign across the street. Westbridge College, Summer Session, 1999. 1999? No. No way! No, absolutely not! But the clothes, the cars, the music echoing faintly from a dorm window. No Scrubs by TLC, if that tells you anything. All of it screamed late 90s college movie. My stomach dropped. I wasn't just outside. I was back. Like, back. Time had, travelled. I stumbled to a bench, dropped onto it like my knees didn't work anymore. My palms were sweating. My brain was yelling. What the hell did I do? How did I do it? Can I undo it? Am I stuck here? Do I even exist here? I pinched my arm, hard. Still here. Still very real. I looked down at the watch on my wrist, still cracked, still glowing faintly like it knew something I didn't. And that's when I heard it. Laughter. From behind me. I turned, slowly, like I already knew. And there they were. My parents. Young. God, young. They couldn't be more than 21. Dad's hair was longer, messier, his shirt had a beer logo on it, and he was trying to juggle 2 milkshakes while opening the passenger door to his beat-up car. Mum was giggling, half teasing, half scolding, trying to keep him from spilling. I watched them, breath caught in my throat. They were flirting. Actually flirting. Not screaming, not sighing, not avoiding eye contact across the dinner table. They were smiling, tripping over each other, making fun of the same terrible playlist on the radio. They looked like people who hadn't broken yet. Like they wanted to be in love. It hit me like a truck. I had a chance. This was my window. I could fix it, stop whatever cracked between them before it fully shattered. But just as I was about to stand, figure out a plan, yell after them, do something, he walked into view. At first, I didn't even see his face, just the silhouette. Tall, broad shoulders, black t-shirt stretched over muscle, one hand shoved in his pocket, the other holding a cigarette like it belonged there, like it had always belonged there. He moved like he didn't care who was watching, like every sidewalk was a runway and every sidewalk led to trouble. And then he looked up, and I saw him. Carter, my dad's best friend. At least, the version of him I'd only seen in old photo albums and birthday VHS tapes. Younger, wilder, rougher around the edges in the hot way, not the please get therapy way. He had that jaw, that crooked smile, those green eyes like forest fire, and when he saw me sitting there, wide-eyed, out of place, probably looking like I'd time-travelled in from literally anywhere else, he smirked. That lazy, slow burn smirk, like I was interesting, like I knew. I looked away too fast, my face burned. He walked past, the scent of cigarettes and cheap cologne trailing after him like a damn trap. And that was the exact moment my heart did something really stupid. It raced. A few days later. The lunch rush was a joke. Too many people, not enough ketchup. Grease clinging to my skin like regret. But I liked the chaos. It distracted me. Because the quiet made room for my thoughts, like, you're not supposed to be here. What if the watch never works again? What if you break something worse? So I kept my head down. Cleaned tables at the job I was able to get at a nearby cafe, with ridiculous ease. Took orders, smiled like I belonged. Then Linda walked in, and the world snapped sideways. Her hair was in a messy bun, strands falling around her face like she didn't have time to care. Her eyeliner was smudged. Her lips were pressed into a tight, thin line that said, "Don't talk to me." But her eyes were glassy. She didn't look like my mum. She looked like a girl who didn't know what came next. She took the corner booth like it was muscle memory, threw her bag down, and then she broke. One hand covered her mouth. The other clutched the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her from unraveling. She didn't sob, not loudly, but her shoulders shook, her chest hitched, silent, brutal. I froze behind the counter. No one else noticed her. Too busy with fries and flirting. But I did. My heart pounded. I shouldn't have gone over. I knew that, but her pain was so real, so familiar. "Hey," I said, voice quiet. "Do you want water or something?" She looked up fast, like I'd caught her stealing grief. I smiled, careful, gentle. "It's okay. I'm invisible here. I won't tell anyone you're human." Her laugh was wet. "Great! A stranger and a comedian." "I try," I said. "It's either that or cry in the freezer." She sniffled, looked down at her hands, and then, out of nowhere, she whispered, "He's pulling away, and I don't know how to stop it." I sat. Didn't ask who. I didn't need to. Justin. "He thinks I don't love him enough," she continued. "But I do. I hesitate. And that hesitation is all he sees." God, I wanted to tell her everything. That I knew how it ended. That I knew why she hesitated. Because she never thought he really wanted her either. That I was their kid, and I was trying to stitch the bleeding wound they'd spent 20 years ignoring. Instead, I just said, "Sometimes the hardest thing is believing someone sees you as their first choice, even when you are." Her lips trembled. I changed the subject, told her she didn't need to pay for the tea, said my name was Matt. It wasn't a lie. Not really. 2 days later, I found my dad, Justin, sitting on the campus lawn that night, surrounded by open notebooks and unopened ambition. "Want one?" he asked, holding up a warm beer. I took it, sat beside him like we were just two dudes figuring life out, not a son sitting next to the younger version of his emotionally constipated father. He didn't talk at first, just stared at the sky, tapping his fingers against the can. "You ever feel like, no matter what you do, you're always waiting for someone to leave?" he said suddenly. "Yeah," I said. "Like you're only loved until something better comes along." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it. The fear, the ache, the boy under the bravado. "She's pregnant," he whispered. I flinched. He didn't notice, or maybe he thought it was surprise, not recognition. "She doesn't know I know, but I do. I found the test, and I want to be happy. I do, but part of me thinks this is it. The thing that traps us in something she never really wanted." I could barely breathe. He took a long sip of beer. "I love her, man. I really freaking do. But what if she didn't choose me? What if I'm just what's left?" My throat closed. My hands shook. "You're not," I said. She loves you. She's scared, but she does." He blinked. "How would you know?" I swallowed. "I just do." He nodded slowly. Then he smiled, and for the first time in my life, I saw my dad. Not the angry, quiet man in the future, but the kid underneath all the armor. It broke me a little. 3 days later, I was closing up the nest, dishes stacked, lights off, music still humming faintly from the back radio. It was late, too late for anyone to still be around. I was halfway through stealing a slice of pie when the back door creaked. Carter stepped in like the night belonged to him, boots scuffed, shirt damp with heat, cigarette tucked behind his ear like punctuation. "Oh," he said, eyes locking onto me. "The mystery boy." I froze. My stomach flipped. "You work here now?" he asked, grinning. "You break in for fun?" He laughed low, raspy, like he hadn't laughed in days. "You've got a mouth on you," he said, stepping closer. "You've got eyes like trouble," I shot back. Our gazes locked. Something shifted. He leaned against the counter, picking up a sugar packet and fidgeting with it. "You always this serious?" he asked. Only when I'm talking to dangerous men who appear in kitchens after hours." His smile faltered just slightly, but then he stepped forward, just enough that I could feel the warmth of him. He reached out, not a grab, just a touch, fingers brushing my wrist like it was the most normal thing in the world. It wasn't. It was everything. His eyes searched mine like he was trying to remember something, like part of him already had. Then he stepped back, left without another word, and I stood in the dark kitchen, heart racing, wrist burning, thinking, oh no, not him. A week later. The plan was simple. Push them together. Gently, subtly. A nudge, not a shove. I told Justin to stop acting like he was being sentenced to life every time Linda walked in the room. Told him to put his damn pride down and show her who she used to laugh with. He mumbled, "I don't know what to say." So I helped him write a note. Not anything grand, just a scrap of napkin with, "Let me fall in love with you again. 8 p.m. The Nest." Linda found it under her coffee mug. I pretended I didn't see her read it twice, smile like it hurt, and whisper, "You idiot." But she showed up, in a dress the color of soft dusk, eyeliner neater this time, nervous, hopeful. They sat in the booth where I first saw her cry. I served them drinks and pretended not to listen, but they talked, really talked, about the pregnancy, about fear, about how both of them were waiting for the other to leave, and how underneath all of it, there was this quiet, bruised kind of love still breathing. "Maybe we didn't get to choose how it started," she said, "but we can still choose this, every day." And Justin, Dad, he reached across the table, took her hand like it was the most important thing he'd ever done. I stood in the kitchen, watching through the small window in the door, heart in my throat. I did that. I fixed it. But just as that relief started to settle in, just as the night softened into the start of a happy ending, a voice behind me said, "You like watching people fall in love?" I turned. Carter. Leaning against the wall, cigarette unlit, eyes locked on mine like he could see straight through my smile. I tried to keep it cool. "Only when it's the right people," he smirked. "What about the wrong ones?" And I swear my whole body paused, because I knew what he was asking, and I didn't have an answer that didn't end in a confession. He stepped closer, not too close, just enough to feel like the air between us had shifted. "You going to that party tonight?" he asked. I wasn't planning to. "You are now." And just like that, I lost control of the night. A few hours later, the party was loud, music too bass-heavy, lights too bright, laughter sharp around the edges. I stayed by the door, red cup untouched in my hand, counting ceiling tiles, just to have something to focus on. I shouldn't be here. I'd done what I came to do. My parents were smiling again, laughing, holding hands. I should be prepping my exit, finding the watch, figuring out how the hell to leave without unraveling everything I'd just put back together. Instead, I was looking for Carter, and that was the real problem, because when I saw him, half in shadow, leaning against the wall like a painting that drank bourbon, my body lit up like it had been waiting. He saw me, nodded once, didn't smile, just looked. We didn't talk again until we were outside. The party throbbed behind us like a bad heartbeat. He unlocked his car with a casual flick and said, "Get in." I did. We didn't speak on the drive, but the silence wasn't empty. It was loaded, ticking, like we were both waiting for the bomb to go off. He parked behind the dorms, left the engine running, then finally said, quietly, "You ever feel like love wasn't made for you?" I blinked, looked at him. He wasn't joking. His eyes were tired, not drunk, not cocky, just open. "I used to think that," I said, "but maybe love's just scared of people like us, because we'd actually take care of it." He turned, slow. His hand brushed mine where it rested on the center console. He didn't grip, didn't pull, just stayed. "I think I've been waiting for this for a long time," he said, "and I don't even know why." And then it happened. He leaned in, so slow it didn't feel like a kiss. It felt like gravity. And when our mouths met, it wasn't fireworks, it was silence. It was breath. It was a breaking point I didn't know I'd reached until I was already falling. His hand slid behind my neck, not possessive, anchoring. My hand gripped his shirt, pulled him closer, like I could stitch myself into the heat of him. It was messy. It was deep. It was wrong. And I never wanted it to end. When we finally pulled apart, I couldn't breathe. He rested his forehead against mine. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. I should have. God, I should have. But I said nothing, and we kissed again. About an hour later, it started with rain. Not dramatic thunder, just soft, steady drizzle tapping at the window like a clock running out. We didn't talk about it, about the watch, about the way it had been flickering lately, how it burned hot against my skin some nights, like it was warning me. I didn't tell Carter, because if I did, I'd have to admit that this, him, us, was ending. So I kissed him instead, slow, deep, like it could buy me time, and he kissed back like he thought we had it. We ended up tangled in his sheets, the room dark, his breath hot against my neck, his fingers mapping my skin like he needed to memorize it. It wasn't rough, it was worship. Every sigh, every moan, every God mad, said like a prayer he'd forgotten he believed in. I wanted to tell him who I was. I wanted to tell him he was the only thing I didn't expect to find in this broken timeline, and the only thing I couldn't leave. But instead, I just said, "Don't stop." And he whispered, "I'd stop time for you if I could." That's when I felt it. The pulse under my skin, the watch ticking again, glowing hot like a vein full of light. Time was cracking. My time was ending. I pulled him closer, buried my face in his neck. "I have to go," I choked out. "I don't want to. Please, remember this." He pulled back, confused. "Matt, what are you talking about?" I grabbed his face, eyes burning, and whispered the words I hadn't even known were waiting inside me. "Find me when the stars repeat." And then, flash. A light so white it burned through reality. His fingers slipped through mine like smoke. His voice called my name like a scream underwater, and then nothing. Just silence. A few minutes later, back to the present timeline. I woke up in my bed. Not my bed, not really. The layout was right, the posters weren't. The sheets smelled like lemon and not Axe. My desk was organized. Photos lined the walls. Me, younger, smiling more, hair a little different. My parents, together, happy. In one, my dad's holding my mum by the waist, grinning like the boy I'd just left behind. She's laughing like someone in love, not someone trapped. I did it. I fixed it. But all I felt was empty. I drifted through the new life like a ghost. No one noticed, not really, not even my parents, who now made breakfast together and laughed in the mornings. And then, dinner. Family friends were coming over. "Justin's old friend," Mum said. "You remember Carter, don't you?" I froze. And then he walked in. Older, broader, grey at the temples, laugh lines deeper, still chain-smoking, still devastating. Carter. He looked at me, a polite smile, eyes flicking over me like I was nobody, like he didn't ache for me across timelines. "Hey," he said, shaking my hand. "Max, right?" I nodded. I said nothing, because if I spoke, I'd break. An hour later. It started slow. Little things, words, moments. At dinner, Carter lit a cigarette on the porch. I followed him out. "You still chain smoke when you're nervous," I said, not thinking. He froze, turned to me. "How the hell would you know that?" I shrugged. "Just a guess." Later, I quoted something, one of the lines he'd said before. "Love's just scared of people. People who'd actually take care of it." He blinked hard, like the words hit him somewhere old. "You said that before," I murmured. He stared at me. "No, He shook his head. "Wait, I've heard that. I remember." His hand gripped the porch railing. His knuckles were white. "Have we met before?" he asked quietly. "Like, really met?" I looked at him, at his eyes, still green, still his, and said, "You ever feel like you've done all this before?" His whole body stilled, like lightning had struck something buried inside him. "Holy shit," he whispered. "It was you." Maybe it was stupid of me to remind him, to tell him the truth. I couldn't just let him be, not when he was within my reach. And the look in his eyes told me he thought the same. A few days later, we started meeting in secret. Late nights, empty roads, his car humming like a heartbeat. Sometimes a cheap hotel off Route 7, curtains drawn, whispers loud in the quiet. Sometimes just a parking lot behind an abandoned gas station, where we'd sit for hours, saying everything we weren't allowed to say. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't even mostly sex. It was talking. About that summer, about the boy he couldn't forget, about the man I'd become. "I thought I made you up," Carter said once, fingers trembling around the wheel. "Thought I'd dreamed you. I waited. For years, Max. I stayed single. Not because I was pining like a lovesick idiot, but because no one felt like you." I swallowed hard. "And now?" He looked at me. "Now you're real. Still young, still you. And I'm terrified." I reached for his hand, held it firm. "I'm 18, I said. "I know what I want." He didn't say anything, but he let me kiss him, hard, desperate, like we were both begging time to stop, for just one night more. A week later, we were in my kitchen, not touching, not exactly, but the air was heavy, thick with memory and desire and that dangerous, hovering need. He was leaning against the counter, watching me. I was pretending to make tea, failing. "You always do this," he said. "What?" "That thing with your mouth when you're nervous. The little twitch. You've done it since..." He stopped himself. I stepped closer. "Since the summer?" He nodded once, eyes dropping to my lips. We didn't kiss, but we almost did. And then, "Hey, Max, where's the charger?" Dad walked in. Silence. Ice. Shock. Me stiff as a statue. Carter stepping away like I'd burned him. Dad paused, glanced between us. Nothing was said, but everything was felt. The tension, the heat, the guilt, the "why were you standing so close" kind of silence that screams. He left after grabbing the charger. The moment shattered. Carter didn't look at me again. "We can't keep doing this," he whispered. "I won't be the man who ruins your life." And he walks out, leaving me in the kitchen that suddenly felt too cold. 3 days later. I didn't chase him, not right away, but 3 days later I knocked on his door. He didn't open it, just said, "Don't, Max." "I'm not here to convince you," I said. Then I pulled it from my jacket pocket. The watch, still cracked, still glowing faint blue along the edges, still humming with all the time we broke. He opened the door, and when he saw it, he looked like I'd handed him a live bomb. "So it wasn't just a dream," he whispered. "It wasn't just love, it was fate." He sat down, hard, like the weight of all of it hit him in the chest. "We changed something. We broke something," he said. "We healed something," I corrected. "My parents, they're happy now. The timeline fixed itself." He looked at me. "But what about us?" I stepped closer. "We're the part that bent." He shook his head. "Max, if you could do it again, go back. Risk everything. Would you?" I didn't hesitate. "No, I wouldn't go alone this time. I'd take you with me." He stared at me, eyes glassy, and this time, when he kissed me, it wasn't frantic. It was forever. A few days later, moving day, I shoved the last box into the back of my car, sweat dripping down my neck, when I heard the sound of an engine pull up. Carter. T-shirt, sunglasses, that same damn cigarette behind his ear. "Thought I'd help you move into that tiny dorm you'll hate," he said, tossing me a cold drink. My parents didn't question it, just thanked him for the help. Because in this new life, this healed timeline, he wasn't the dark mystery. He was the family friend, the guy who'd always been around, The one who never married, never settled, never stopped waiting. We carried boxes, laughed, touched hands, accidentally. When my parents were gone, he leaned in, right there in the parking lot, sun high above us, and kissed me. Not soft, not hidden, real, raw, ours. No one knew the truth. No one needed to, except him and me, and maybe the stars. The watch broke, I whispered against his lips. The timeline healed. He smiled. But us? We were always meant to bend the rules. The end. Would you risk the future for a love that was never meant to exist? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.